I'm going head to head with the newest version of ChatGPT to see if I can outsmart it in a real Mensa IQ test. So I began by making my predictions. I had done a few practice rounds before putting this clanker up to the task, and I usually fall between the 115 to 130 range, so that's where I think I'll land. Our battery-brained friend, ChatGPT, on the other hand, was a bit more ambitious, and it predicted a score of 145 to 155 for itself. Now, after a tough round of questions, I actually managed to achieve a score of 135, which was better than I expected, but not as high as the wire-rat standards that it set for itself. So let's see how well ChatGPT can answer these questions, and if it lives up to its very high IQ that it trumpets about. I sent over the first question, which was really easy. All you need to do here is split the shape in half and rotate them 180 degrees in opposite directions, which thankfully Rustbucket 3000 was able to get right. The difficulty, however, moved up significantly when we reached the second question. Now, whilst I was checking which questions ChatGPT got right and wrong, this one literally took me over half an hour to figure out, and that's because it's just stupid. The number on the left is multiplied by the number on the right, which makes the middle number. As you can see, 8 times 4 is 32, and so on. Anyway, this circuit sucker banged on about some nonsense patterns that didn't exist and chose 4, which is incorrect, as the answer is 6, because 9 times 7 equals 63. On to question 3 now. Unfortunately, this one was a lot easier. All you have to do is rotate the shape 90 degrees. And somehow, this tin for brains got it wrong. Bro really thought about it for a good minute too, and then picked the middle option. Now, maybe it got confused and didn't realize the smaller circle had a line in the middle, but that's still a poor answer from this beat boot buffoon. Question 4 wasn't too bad, as it was an odd one out question. The correct answer is the bottom middle, because it's the only one with one of the outside circles that aren't actually touching the triangle. And our server slug actually managed to get this one right this time. Question 5 was a bit more difficult, but definitely doable. Both digits of the numbers on the left add up to create the number on the right. As we can see, 3 plus 2 equals 5, and so on. Surprisingly, the oil snorter was able to get this correct pretty easily, adding up 4 and 3 to get the right answer of 7. Now, for question 6, the mecha moron couldn't even tell the difference between 3 circles. For some reason, it considered the white circles and the empty circles the same, so it believed there were only 2 different types of circles. Now, obviously, since it did this, it got the answer wrong. But the thing is, I'm terrible at anything to do with maths past simple multiplication, so I couldn't get this one. I had to reach out to the person I know with the highest IQ, who told me the answer was 33. This is his reasoning, read it if you're that bothered. Now, the difficulty temporarily falls in question 7 with a very easy pattern question. Obviously, this line is just spiraling in a cube-esque way, so the correct option is the middle one. Even though the cog sucker had to think about this to get this right, it eventually did, after it crashed twice. At question 8, we're tasked with finding the odd one out again. There's this weird hangman looking thing, and it's rotating round in a circle. However, in the bottom right, you'll be able to see that the image is actually mirrored, which makes it the odd one out. You can tell by the way the top line is pointing. It's suddenly changed directions. The scraphead was able to get this one pretty easily, so well done. On to question 9, and we simply just have to continue the sequence. As you can see, this line here is rising, while the one over here is just moving to the right, leaving the top left as the only real possible answer. Now, R2-Dum2 here was able to get this one, probably because it's really, really easy. At question 10, we're confronted with another number grid. Now, if you've got a keen eye, you'll realize that the 2 rightmost numbers multiply each other to create the number on the left. As you can see, 2 times 7 equals 14, etc. Our favorite sum from question 2 returns, with 9 multiplied by 7 equaling 63. But did Opti-less Prime manage to get this right? Yet no, of course not. For some reason, ChatGPT really struggles with the number questions, and to be fair, they are probably the hardest ones. Speaking of hard ones, let's not talk about question 11. Well, we are, but okay, it's not hard. Question 11 simply multiplies the number 4 each time in the sequence, giving you an answer of 256. Now, the trash former was able to get this one, because if it couldn't, that would be really worrying, especially considering the amount of people that use this as a substitute for actual research. Now, question 12 wasn't too hard again. The way to tell which rectangle fills the space is by looking here. You see how it cuts off a slight bit of that stripe? Well, using this to our advantage, we can see we're looking for a rectangle with 3 lines with consistent spacing and width, with that little bit of cut off stripe in the corner. The only one that matches this description is the top right, which therefore is the correct answer. Even though this isn't that hard, the firmware fools somehow got it wrong and thought it was the top middle. Question 13 looks weirdly delicious. Unfortunately, this pizza is gonna be tough, so it probably won't be that delicious if it's tough, get it? Because it looks like a Alright, okay, never mind. Alright, so I can tell you that the clanker's reasoning was wrong. I looked over it and it made no sense. But I seriously can't get this one. So the first person to get it in the comments with an explanation gets pinned or something. Question 14 is actually quite tough. I wasn't even able to get it myself, but this is the pattern. The difference between the two bottom numbers is what is added to the higher number on the bottom to make the top number. The difference between 12 and 17 is 5, and 17 plus 5 is 22, so therefore the answer to the question is 45, because the difference between 41 and 43 is 2. Now, unfortunately, the clank spawn beat me and got this one right. Let's just say I did it because I felt bad. Now for the final question. This is just the alphabet, but only every fourth letter. So if you skip to the end of the sequence, 4 letters past P, you'll find T, which is the correct answer. The circuit vermin ChatGPT was able to get this one pretty quickly, so props to that. But the burning question. What was ChatGPT's final IQ score? And did I beat him? Look guys, ChatGPT really isn't that smart, so don't rely on everything it says. Thanks for watching, join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, and most importantly, subscribe!